In case you haven't clocked on by now, most of the rules are rigged. But are they rigged in your favour? If not, it's probably time to reconsider them. If you've grown up as part of any society, you've been made aware about the importance of following the rules your entire life. Your parents, your teachers, religious leaders, the government, your employer, the taxman, society. At every turn, everyone has been telling you what you must do and why. Even if others are not telling you the rules directly, you're picking up on the rules with your social intelligence. You're picking up on the way that others treat you and the rewards or consequences based on whether you have or haven't followed the rules. In addition to that, you're seeing the way that others are being treated and being made examples of as a consequence for not following the rules. I'm not just talking about the law or official institutional rules that have been made into policy or into commandment. I'm also talking about the spoken and unspoken rules that govern our social interactions, our cultures, the families that we come from. The rules about your race, your appearance, your class, your gender, your financial status, your level of education, your religion. All those unofficial rules that govern our worlds, our social interactions, our experiences. What do those rules say about your limitations and your level of worthiness? And how do you actively or passively follow those rules, even when they're not working in your favour? Whatever uniform they wear, our ability to follow laws and rules is often conflated with our morality and our sanity. And that's why you are reluctant to break them, even when they're working against you. Those that break laws and rules are often framed by our information sources as wrong, as bad, as meaning us harm, as terrorists, as insane. And we don't have to look too far in history or into the present moment to see examples of this. During his time in his fight for the equal rights of black people, Martin Luther King was labelled as dangerous and placed under so much scrutiny and an unjustifiable level of surveillance in order to disrupt everything that he was doing and to undermine the civil rights movement. If we go back further into history, there was a time when it was illegal for an enslaved person to try to escape their situation or for anyone to help them do so. And not only was it illegal, but even the desire to want to escape was pathologized as a mental illness and given the name drapetomania. Now, of course, I wouldn't ever try to equate our experience of today's world with transatlantic slavery. But what still does persist today is the pattern of labelling the individual wanting to flee the dysfunctional system rather than acknowledging the system itself as dysfunctional. I'll give an example. When someone tells their doctor that they can't bear the thought of going to work, that they dread being there, that they feel overwhelmed with balancing life's other demands in addition to working, and that they're struggling more and more to find the motivation to get out of bed in the morning, burnout, anxiety, depression, and how to manage them would be explored as a first point of call. Now, what wouldn't be scrutinised is how unreasonable the concept is of working from 9 to 5, 5 days out of 7, in jobs that are unfulfilling, can't provide financial stability because we live in a debt-based society that leaves us a couple of paychecks away from financial hardship. And so the issue continues to be located in the individual rather than in the wider system. And what this does is ensures that there's no threat to the status quo so that it can be maintained. So as you can see, whether we're looking into the past, the present, or we're trying to predict the future, we will always find laws and rules that are legitimized, that are moralized, and that are, in all honesty, absolutely ridiculous. So with that being said, I want to shift the focus a little bit. Instead of focusing on the rules and how not to step out of bounds, I want you to turn your curiosity towards those who make the laws and the rules and ask yourself, what do you notice? I notice that I'm looking at a powerful minority, and I also notice that the rules don't apply in the same way. Even when the rules are applied to the powerful minority, the texture's different. It's like it's tailored to fit and not cause too much inconvenience, and the force with which it's applied is a shifting goalpost. I also noticed that attempts made by the majority to hold them accountable are met with pacification, denial, gaslighting, complete disregard in some cases. I must admit that in recent years, this shocked me a little bit. I was surprised by how blatantly the powerful minority disregarded the rules and the laws and the standards that they had held the rest of the world to, and seemed to be being rewarded for it at the end of the day. A certain president who broke many laws and was still re-elected into power comes to mind. And my shock wasn't anything to do with expecting better from people. I just thought that keeping up appearances was very important, and so any bad behaviour would be kept tightly behind closed doors. But then I realised that I was being naive, because at the end of the day, who gets to tell the loudest tale about what happened and when? Who gets to legitimise their own account of history because they decide the law and they control academia and technology? And in that same vein, I ask more generally, who makes the rules? Who can change them if they please? Who do the rules really serve? Now, I'm sure you've had all these kind of thoughts before, and I'm not bringing them up to try and trigger you or just for the sake of pointing out how much injustice there is in this world. It's quite the opposite. I'm hoping that it sets you free in a similar way that it did for me. Because rather than continuing to point the finger at those at the top, I turn to myself and ask the question, why do I continue to partake in this pantomime? And that line of questioning is where you start to take your power back. That line of questioning is where you begin to unpick your programming and shift your mindset. And if you're wanting to start with this unpicking, I'd recommend that you download my free ebooklet, which is called The 10 Mindset Shifts That Will Shift Your Reality. And that's available to download in the description box below. I'd also recommend that you have a look at my previous video where I break this down a little bit more, and I'll link that at the end of this video. Now, I need to come in and give a disclaimer here, because I'm not encouraging anyone to go out and, be looking for what rules and what laws they can break just for the sake of breaking them. That is not my message for you today. But I say all this to say, as much as rules and laws are an important part of our civilization and have their place, it's time to start asking yourself some critical questions about how the rules serve you, both the official and unofficial rules, and to become more selective about the rules that you take to heart and follow in response to that important conversation with yourself. Just think about it. For your whole life up until this point, you've probably followed most, if not all, the rules that you've been told to, from the actual law to the more subtle social and cultural rules that govern our worlds and our experiences in this world. The rules that tell you that you can't have certain things because you look a certain way or don't look a certain way. The rules that tell you what it's too late for you to achieve because of your age. The rules that tell you where you can and can't go because of your race, or what you can or can't aspire to achieve because of your level of education or your class. Whether you're aware of it or not, there are a lot of these rules that don't work in your favour, that in fact are actively working against you, that you have internalized over time and continue to enforce over your own life. I need you to really get curious about the rules that are governing your life and your experiences. And I need to ask you, in all these years of following the rules, has doing so taken you where you want to go in life? And will continuing to do so, do you think, land you where you're hoping to be in your future? I genuinely hope that the answer to both these questions is a resounding yes. But if the answer is no, then it's time to get curious about and reconsider the rules. And I say this not to encourage you to be rebellious for the sake of rebellion, but to swap out acting in the interest of following arbitrary rules for acting in the genuine interests of your soul, in the interest of your highest good. To act in the best interest of your soul, your highest good, is to lean into your soul and to listen, rather than to follow the masses blindly and hopefully. It will take the transforming and the renewing of your mind, a very intentional act that starts with you pausing and asking yourself some questions about what rules you're allowing to govern your life and why.